I think my worst fear happened in business, and I was still okay. And I still had a lot of joyful moments and wonderful days. And so I think that was very freeing for me.
Hey there, I'm Goli Kalkaran, and this is Lessons from a Quitter, where we believe that it's never too late to start over. No matter how much time or money you've spent getting to where you are, if ultimately you are not happy, then it's time to get out. If you're feeling stuck and you feel like there's gotta be more, there's gotta be a way to feel fulfilled and excited about what you do, then this is the podcast for you. Each week, I will sit down with an inspiring guest who quit their professional career in order to forge their own path and create a life that they love. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Lessons from a Quitter. I am so excited you are here, and I'm really excited to hang out with you today. Before we jump into this awesome episode, I just wanted to let you know that our live event is in 2 days. It's on August 15th in Irvine, California. If you're around the Southern California area, you have to join us. It's going to be an amazing night. We're going to do a live podcast recording with some amazing past guests. We're going to do a coaching session. There's going to be food, there's going to be drinks, there's going to be networking. You're going to meet people that you like and that you can support and find a community in. So please join us. You can go to quitterclub.com/event to find out more. I'm so excited about today's episode. We have Kelsey Chapman on today's episode, and she is a brand and business strategist, a podcaster, and an entrepreneur who helps people get unstuck. Right up our alley. She started blogging on the side while she was doing her day job because she felt frustrated and trapped, which a lot of us feel. And that blog and her building up her own social media following led her to create her own business, her agency that we'll talk about. And then we'll talk about what it took to actually decide to shut that down and all of the iterations that her career has taken. She now provides a year-long mastermind program called Dream to Done, where she helps entrepreneurs and creatives build their companies. And what is really cool about her story, and we'll get into, and she just announced it on this podcast, that she got a job offer. And so it's really interesting to see someone go from job to starting their own business to then realizing that the new skills that they've acquired open them up to some really cool positions. And the job that she got offered was just too good to pass up. And I think it just really highlights the fact that there is no like right or wrong decision. The path will lead you where you need to go. And it really just takes that leap of faith and knowing that you will figure it out. And I love that her story really embodies that. So without further ado, let's jump in and talk to Kelsey. Hi, Kelsey. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
Oh, I'm so excited to have you. And we're going to get into all of the fun and exciting and wonderful things that you're doing. But we like to kind of start back at the beginning, how you pivoted into this fabulous career that you've built for yourself. So why don't you start by telling us a little bit about the earlier part of your career looked like maybe what you went to school for, what you thought you'd be doing, that good stuff.
Woohoo! Well, my journey has taken a lot of twists and turns. I went to school for global studies in Spanish. I really thought I'd have a career of traveling the world. My advisor promised me I could be a diplomat with my liberal arts global studies degree, which now looking back, I'm like, get something useful at college. But I had a great time. So I got out of college, had no idea what I was going to do with my life. And my now double major in global studies in Spanish, didn't want to be a teacher, which is, kind of the typical route you're going to go with Spanish.
Right.
And really just felt a little lost. I ended up doing a program over in Mozambique for a summer. And that was really fun. I really thought eventually I'd move overseas, do international work. And then I got to a village and I was bored out of my mind. And so I realized, oh, wow, I think I'm meant to be a bridge. I've always been interested in business, but I thought it was just more of the noble thing to do to go work overseas. And then I got there and I was like, oh, I'm really not doing my best work here. And I am bored and it's not really contributing much. And so I came back home and kind of hit reset and went on this path of finding myself. I had always been really creative and loved to write. So I started a blog with my friend and I just worked a normal day job. We quickly built our blog to 40,000 followers
Oh, wow.
in a year. And I realized, oh, I have a knack for digital marketing. I really enjoy this.
I'm sorry, what was the blog about?
Oh, it was like a total lifestyle blog, which I'm knocking it. But I think on Mondays we did marriage and motherhood, which neither of us were moms. We just invited women to share about that. And Tuesdays we did travels. Like she had traveled the world on the world race and I had done a lot of traveling, hence my super fun global studies degree. And so we both had these kind of passions for traveling. I think another day we did like more of like an encouraging devotional style post. And Fridays we had something about business. So it was, definitely not honed in or niched down, but it was a fun creative outlet and everyone starts somewhere. And we did have, readers and page views. And so we ran with it for about a year, grew it fast, but realized, we have super different work styles. Ended up parting ways. And that was really the best thing that we could have done for ourselves because I think my pace was killing her. And then she was like, I never signed up to run at the pace you want to run at. And so, sharing something is hard. I'm so glad we did that together. That blog has since evolved in both of our worlds so much. We are both doing totally different things, but I think it awakened something in us. And for me, it showed me, I love helping people expand their reach online. So that ended up kind of positioning me for me to step into digital marketing. So I ended up taking some digital marketing jobs, first with kind of a public figure, second with a nonprofit around wealth building and finance. And I worked those jobs in the early part, kind of building my own business. I think I'd taken like 1 or 2 clients off of Upwork at that point, but was just allowed my blog to like launch me into this new field of, I kind of have a knack for growing something and learning all the ins and outs of it.
So when you guys parted ways, you kept up with like that blog became kind of yours and you kept it up on the side while you were still working a full-time job?
Yes. And so I had the Radiant Life blog. She was kind of like, I'll just give it to you. I had, during my post-Africa finding myself season, right when we started the blog, I just took a job at Starbucks for a while. It was such a gift to be able to work there in that season and get off by 11 and work on my blog. So anyone who tells me they can't start something on a budget, I started the stuff at Starbucks, y'all. I wasn't making any money. And my husband was in school.
Yeah, no, I love that. I mean, I think even up until this point, and we'll kind of keep going, there's so many nuggets that are really important that I want to highlight because what you just said, again, we've had a bunch of people on the podcast who have gone from, 6-figure salaries, investors, lawyers, whatnot, to quitting their jobs and becoming a personal trainer or doing something else that gives them the freedom and to do what they want to do on the side. But it's kind of checking that ego. It's going from, I was this person to what am I doing now? But I think if you can check that, there's a lot of ways to sustain yourself and give yourself some space in order to try something on the side. It's just a matter of kind of wanting to take that step. And I know it's harder if you have kids and you have a certain people's situation. But another thing that I love that I know we joke about it, you laughed about it being a lifestyle blog, but I really want to highlight this because one of the things I see with a lot of people that are stuck, I was in the same exact position when I wanted to leave law, is you feel like you got to figure out what your life's passion is going to be, what the next thing is for the rest of your life. There's so much pressure on that next decision, to be the right one. And I really want people to understand that it's there is no right decision, right? You have to just start and you start somewhere and everyone starts and pivots. And I really want to highlight this, that had you not started that lifestyle blog, then you wouldn't have seen that, you have a knack for growing things and that you like helping people grow their brands and you like digital marketing. And, that whole thing starts by taking that one step. And then you take that step and you see it hey, I like this part and I don't like this other part. And that's okay. And then I can figure out from there.
Yes, and that's been such a gift for me, and I'm sure we'll get to it, but I recently laid down a multi-6-figure business, and that pivoted me into the next season. And so, it's okay to evolve and to change, and usually those moments that are hard become stepping stones for the next thing. Even if sacrifice is involved, usually there's an upgrade around the corner if you're looking for it. I mean, you have a choice of your mindset. Am I going to let this kill me? Am I going to say, my life's so hard, blah, blah, blah? Or am I going to say, no, this is going to launch me into the next season and it's going to be even better? And I'm not saying that from a place of like roses and butterflies in the sky, but it's true if you believe for that.
Absolutely. Oh my God, I can't wait to get to that part because that sounds very interesting. Okay, so you're now working and you're still building this blog, and you were saying you were taking on a couple of clients from Upwork. What kind of clients?
Okay, when we were running our blog, we realized Instagram was going to be the best way to drive traffic to it and the most malleable platform to grow. Facebook, you've got to run ads. We didn't have money for that. I was working at Starbucks. And then Pinterest just felt like kind of a dragon to tame. And so Instagram felt really malleable. Like I could really learn it. I could grow it. There were some workarounds to be able to grow without spending thousands of dollars a month. And so I took my first client on Upwork after I could use my own platform as an example. And then I'd kind of taken on some jobs at this point. I had worked for that influencer. My Instagram savvy got me that job. And then I ended up working for this nonprofit when I moved to Colorado. But simultaneously, I took my first client on Upwork, and I quickly became Instagram's top Instagram strategist.
Oh, interesting.
And that allowed me to build an agency. And so up until April, I ended up working that nonprofit job for about 6 months while I built my Instagram agency. And at the 6-month mark, the workplace was toxic enough to push me out the door. I hate sounding like a victim or like I just couldn't hack it. But for reference, every employee quit in one day. And so
oh, wow.
It was really bad, but I was so glad it got bad enough to push me out because I was really clinging to having that, it's not like you're making a ton of money, a nonprofit, but it was steady income. And so, I had simultaneously been building up my Upwork clients and had enough to leave, but was really scared to make the leap to quit.
Wow. I'm assuming that the workplace was probably toxic the whole time. So I'm sure that you had been kind of dreaming about leaving at some point. But do you think if it wasn't toxic, like if it was just a normal work environment, do you think you would have still jumped at some point because you had, some clients you were obviously proving that this could work as a business? Or do you think that security would have kind of kept you there?
I don't know. Now knowing what I know, like about the potential and possibility of the online business world and what you can build.
Right.
It's like, I think I would have eventually left, but I didn't know that at that point. And when I took that job, I was like, oh my gosh, this is my dream job. I get to work for a nonprofit doing impactful work. They're finance oriented. So they are giving microfinance loans to women who are opening a grocery store in a village overseas. So I'm like, wow, it's blending my global studies degree, my love for business. I'm doing digital marketing at that job, and it's doing impactful work overseas where I kind of do get to be that bridge, because some of my biggest lessons while I was overseas was like, I kind of scoffed like worldly materialistic things, but it takes money to get stuff done.
Absolutely.
That was a huge lesson I learned there. And I kind of got back and was like, wow, this job is bundling everything I ever wanted to do together. And so I thought, wow, I'll stay with this job forever. And there were big promises, like you'll be this within the company. And so at that time, when I took the job, I was all starry eyes. I wanted to be there 100%. We were bought in. And I got one of my best friends out of the job, and she was too. We both were, oh my gosh, what impactful work.
It's amazing that you say that. I had literally the exact same experience when I was a federal public defender. When I got the job, I literally told everybody in my family, like, this is my dream job. It was everything I'd gone to school for. And I thought I had lucked out that I got the job years before I thought I would. And when I got it, it was like everything. And then I had a similar situation, which was a very toxic work environment. I ended up staying for 4 years. So how much I clung to security. But I wonder, because I hear this a lot when there's people that are doing impactful work or doing, it doesn't have to be nonprofit, but if you're doing something in a service base where you're helping people, even if, you have this other thing and there's promising and there's money in it and there's all this other stuff. And I know now you see how much impact and how much amazing things that come out of Instagram and social media and the online digital world. But I'm wondering, like, at the time when you were leaving, did you have a sense of guilt of like, I'm leaving doing this work that is changing people's lives to go like do marketing on Instagram?
I knew that the impact was still going to get taken care of. I knew that that company was going to carry on and still be able to offer microfinance loans and help people like get their finances in order. I knew that that would still carry on. I made peace with like letting go of that. I was the person for doing that because I think one of the biggest lessons I learned out of that season was, okay, at this point I had an Instagram audience. I was on my way to like doing what I wanted out of life, which is speaking and writing. And it showed me you can have an audience who tells you you hung the moon, but if your team right around you is suffering, you're missing the point. My audience should never get the best version of me. The people who interact with me on a daily basis are the ones who should get the best, most beneficial parts of who I am and how I serve the world. And so I knew that that wasn't happening in that place. And I mean, we all hung in there so long.
Yeah.
We hung in there. I mean, 6 months doesn't sound like a long time, but I've made peace.
No, and I think that's the right way. And I don't in any way want to infer that you should have felt guilt. I think that you're 100% right. What I learned later too is that you can't martyr yourself kind of for a cause. Like if you're not taking care of yourself mentally and emotionally, it doesn't matter, what kind of job you're doing, your relationships suffer, you suffer, the people around you suffer. And so it's not worth it. And I think that that is 100% the right outlook, is that like, if you can bring your whole self to something, even if isn't as big of a cause as you think it should be, you're going to end up doing such a more amazing job and radiate so much more positivity and like be such a better person that effect will be more than like being a miserable person in a situation where you're actually doing good. And so I ask that just because I do think that people have this misplaced guilt and they stay in these situations because they think, well, I'm helping these people, but then they're completely suffering, in their family life, in their own life, and because they're just so unhappy. And it's like, it's okay to put your happiness first.
Well, a word you said that deeply resonated with me and that I said all the time is like, I'm not going to martyr my life for your cause. Like I think this is an amazing organization, but it also showed me that like dreams will never get carried because this was really my boss's passion project. He had been in a career for 40 years and this is essentially what he was doing in his retirement to give back. And he was just a good old boy who was shrewd. And so none of it was personal, but it showed me, man, like if you don't do your personal work and you're turning over employees, they told us you're the longest employees that have ever stayed here. And I'm like, I'm sorry, for 6 months? Like if you don't do your personal work, your dreams will never go as far as you want them to go. Because the reality is with my business and my dream, if I'm retraining employees every 6 months because I can't keep them, then my dream will always be underdeveloped. It taught me a lot of like, oh, here's some ways you can still do impactful work, but really miss it. And like your own dreams are at stake because of your unwillingness to do the work. It was a wild ride.
Okay. So you leave and you already have some clients. And so your thought is what? I'm going to go all in on this freelance work.
Yeah. And it was a total leap of faith because I love security and stability. I've realized that. I had enough clients to pay our bills. My husband was also in school. So again, not convenient timing. Right. And I've found this to be like how my career has unfolded in general. Once I made room for that next step is when the expansion came. But like the expansion doesn't always come when we're just waiting for the security to take the step. Sometimes it's like making that leap before you know what's next. And so I had just enough, but like could not have afforded for clients to really drop and was totally undercharging and had too many clients on my plate. And it would be like, another year before I was brave enough to raise my prices. And so I left with probably 10 clients on my roster. Within 3 or 4 months, had 20, then a few months later it doubled. And so it quickly just like kept compounding to where until this last April, I had 50 clients on my roster any given month. And that was a lot. And I was growing really resentful of Instagram and being known as the Instagram girl and people being so obsessed with their numbers that they called you at 11:30 at night or 6 a.m., which is my own fault for not setting boundaries. But I have a whole nother story about that, so we can get there.
Yeah. So were you taking care of all these clients by yourself, or did you have employees? How are you running this kind of a business?
Yes. So I was doing it all myself at first, and then eventually hired one team member for like 10 hours a week only, and then hired a second one last fall. And that's when my life really changed. I was really scared. I had some mentors say like, why don't you start outsourcing some of this stuff or delegating it? You don't have to run all the moving parts on your own. And I was like, well, I don't want to do this forever anyways. Like, this is just a means to an end. Like, I never meant to build an agency, but it was good money. It was great money. And so I kept getting kind of a nudge to just like hire a team, have them do that, keep building this, because you can always write and speak and maintain this on the side. But the problem was is it was never able to be run on the side. It was all consuming. And so I did eventually hire team members, and that changed my life drastically. But my mind, because of people's, again, obsession with numbers, and I had the best clients ever, so I am not knocking any of them. But people, if you don't grow for a few days, you're like, what? Why didn't I grow 10 followers? And I got to a point where I was like, I think I could care less about followers ever again.
Yeah. Overall, clearly there was some kind of a shift last April, but how long overall had you been running this or growing this agency?
Well, 3.5 years. So December 2015 to April 2019.
Oh, wow. Okay. And you were saying, I think earlier, I'm assuming that this is the project that you laid to rest that was like multiple six figures in April. So you were making multiple six figures in this agency, and you're getting a nudge to like stop it completely, or?
I was somewhat forced to quit, but for probably 6 months leading up to April, I really felt like something's about to change, and I knew it. And I'd been building for years, like taking a lot of what I made and putting it back into the core side of my business to build something that I thought was excellent and of value and really allowed me to show up in the way I love teaching. I really probably in November, before this all kind of went downhill, which really it wasn't even downhill. It's been uphill since. But it really started feeling like a ton of anxiety. And like, when the phrase, you have grace for the moment, like you have grace for what's in front of you, and then the grace leaves and it's only tension. And you're like, I think this is a shift of alignment. Like something's changing. Like I don't think I can do this in this way much longer. And then, I was dealing with constant algorithm changes. Instagram rolls out changes literally every week. And so by April, I was always able to adapt and pivot. But I've said ever since I started my agency, I'm only going to be able to do this for so long because, if we look at Facebook's trajectory, Facebook, you used to be able to grow a likes page and have an engaged and active community there. And then they roll out the only way to grow is ads. And that's fair. We're using a free platform, and they're saying, if you're a business, you're going to pay us to grow. And I get that. And Facebook acquired Instagram, and then the founders left. And especially once the founders of Instagram left, you started seeing a lot more Facebook-like changes roll out. And so I knew like, oh, there's going to be no way to grow besides ads soon. And I don't think I want to pivot into running ads. And so sure enough, every algorithm change would be like, woo, my world would flip upside down for a few days, a week. And then I'd figure it out and I'd be able to adapt and pivot. But this last one in April just crushed our ability to grow in that same way. And I just felt like, hey, this is your out. You don't have to pivot. Like there wasn't a solution like there was in the past. And so I felt like this is not where I'm going to turn into an ads agency. I don't want to do that. You have to have a very specific personality type to even do that, because you have to be comfortable with losing people's money, And so I wasn't, and that's not ever what I set out to do anyways. It was just kind of something that I was able to build while I was building the more encouragement side of my career, and made the decision of like, no, you don't have to force this into rolling these clients into a new Instagram oriented offer. This is a great opportunity to say, I think this door is closing. And so I notified all my clients. A lot of them still reach out to me and are like, do you have any other strategies? Is there a new way to work with you? And I'm like, the only way to work together is a strategy session, but I have long wanted to be out of implementation, and here we are.
That's incredible, though. I mean, going back to the same thing of like the security, I think it takes a lot of strength to have something that is still working. So often we just keep forcing it, even if it's, out of alignment, even if it's something that has grown. Like what I want people to take away is even if you find something that you love, that too can turn into something that you no longer serves you or no longer lights you up the way it does. And that's okay. And like once we become more comfortable with pivoting and changing, which I know like as like human beings in general, we have a fear of change. So it's going against your natural tendencies. But I think that it takes a lot of courage to walk away from something that is a good income and is still working for the foreseeable future. You know, maybe you're right, in a year or two, it might completely be gone. But it takes a lot to say, I'm just going to stop this, even though I could still make money for the next year or so and make a good amount of good living. You know, I commend you because I think that most people don't have that foresight to say like, hey, it's time to pivot and I'm going to like take a step back so I can move forward faster.
Oh my gosh. And it was a fascinating case study in like trading your peace for money. You know, I had started to feel that tension about 6 months before all this happened. And I'm 29, my body hurt all over every day.
Oh, interesting.
And I thought, okay, in January, I started going to the gym every day, like 5 days a week. And then I booked 2 massages a month and I still was in pain. So I was like, okay, maybe like a disc gets slipped or something. Like something's wrong. I'm trying to do all the health oriented, like holistic approaches. The only time I'm not in pain is like the 4 hours after a massage twice a month. And within 6 days of me, you know, the Instagram change hit on a Thursday morning, I made the decision to like wrap up everything by Saturday night, started emailing all my clients. By Monday morning, 50% to 70% of the conversations were being at least handled or in process. And then by Tuesday, like all of my pain was gone.
Oh my
I
God.
carried so long. And I was like, oh, I will never tell myself the story. I have to keep doing this again. I don't have to. What's the alternative? Going and getting a day job? Who cares? At least I'd leave that there at the end of the day. And so like, you don't have to do anything that costs you your peace. Now, I will say that is coming from someone who is a doer. If you have a hard time like doing the hard parts of your business, we've got to get over that.
Right.
But for the most part, you know, like I don't have to do anything that costs me my peace. And I never have to build something like that again, you know? And so it was a really important lesson. And the level of peace I had in the 2 months following that, the total unknown of what's next, I really like that uncertainty was still more peaceful than the stress I felt every day with what I had built, you know?
Oh my
and
God.
So I think my worst fear happened in business and I was still okay. And I still had a lot of joyful moments and wonderful days. And so I think that was very freeing for me.
That's amazing. I think we can learn so much from that. I think a lot of us carry a lot of the stress in our bodies, and a lot of people feel a lot of what you're talking about. We've talked a lot about it with other people too, where like they're having panic attacks at work. I mean, your body is literally telling you that like it can't handle the amount of stress that you're putting on it. And yet we tend to just push through or medicate or do what we need to do in order to get through. And it really takes a lot to stop and say like, I don't have to do this to myself. And there are other ways. And it's a matter of like having that strength and courage to look for the other ways. And I think for you, so as you're doing this, building this agency, and now you're looking for the next thing, I mean, were you still doing other things? Were you still building out your blog? Were you providing other services that you're providing now before you shut this agency down? Or were you only 100% doing marketing, you know, Instagram?
I'm always going to have like multiple irons in the fire. So while I was, you know, making great money, I did take a lot of that to build the e-course side of my business. And I have a few courses, but my baby is my mastermind. You know, mentorship has always been super important to me. I've had these incredible women step into my life and my story and guide me through every step of the way. And so I wanted to create a space like that for women in business, getting their dreams off the ground. And so I launched that last fall. And when this all happened, I felt like, you know, this is a natural time to pivot into that being my main focus. Now, I ended up getting a job offer that I wasn't applying for jobs. I definitely never imagined even going back to a traditional role, but I got kind of an offer I couldn't turn down.
Oh, wow.
For kind of a role heading up marketing and PR for a startup. And so with the total freedom to build whatever I want on the side, as long as my work is done. And so for me, I was like, wow, nothing is lost. Literally nothing I've done is wasted. Building an Instagram agency proved that without a background in marketing and PR, I could land a role that's essentially the director and has total creative freedom for marketing and PR for a local startup. And as we found with my husband's job hunting, it is really hard to get in tech. And so I've learned that nothing is lost. Everything serves as a stepping stone for the next season. I literally never imagined even applying for jobs in this next season. And I sat down and thought I was just on a coffee date and got a job offer. It's been a really interesting journey in laying that business down without a plan, knowing, okay, this is a natural opportunity to focus on my mastermind, but that's not a full-time income. So it's a leap of faith. And then having time and space and room to amp up because I now have more attention for it. And then also getting this offer totally unexpected, but feeling just a sense of peace of like when you make room for what's next, you're going to be disappointed.
Oh my God, I love this so much. I can't even stand it because, this is the thing that I'm really trying to get across through all these interviews and this podcast is like, when we cling to what we know because of security, when we have your head down in your cubicle and you're not looking around, you're not trying any other thing and you get stuck. Like a lot of times, the biggest thing that people get stuck on is this sunk cost fallacy. Like I've put so many years, I've wasted so much time already kind of getting to this place and getting these degrees. If I leave now, it's all wasted. And I constantly say, like, when you're looking at sunk cost, you're not looking at the opportunity cost that you're giving up by not venturing out, by not looking at other opportunities, by not putting yourself out there and seeing what else is possible. And so there's always a give and take. And I love what you just said, that like nothing is lost. Like I think so many times, and I felt like this for a long time, I kept thinking, I can't believe I'm wasting, my law degree and everything. And now as I go through this journey, I see how much that shaped who I am and how much it just created my story and how it lets me connect with other people that are in similar positions and like how much I use actually like my legal degree for the things that I'm doing in my business. But it really started reshifting my focus on like, it's not lost. It created who I am and I use all that and it leads me to the next thing. And I really think if people can understand that just because you're stepping out into something else doesn't mean you've quote unquote wasted anything. And all of that stuff, one thing leads you to the next and leads you to the next if you're open to it, if you're open to seeing other possibilities and giving yourself space to try and fail and try again and, reach out and build those bridges. It's incredible that you have now like gone kind of back to getting a job because it just fell in your lap. And what an amazing job it sounds like.
Yeah, it's been a really interesting journey. I hate that I've used the word journey 70,000 times. I feel like I'm on The Bachelor with how much I say journey. But it is really cool to see sometimes something you put on a shelf comes back 5 or 7 years later and you kind of don't even expect it to come back. I found that in this kind of space between closing the doors or that part of my business, I have seen dreams reemerge that I forgot about, that I thought they had just gone away, but I just no longer had margin for them when I was running at that pace. And so it's even been really interesting to be like, oh, wow, those parts of me are still there. And they've kind of resurfaced and reemerged in the best way and at just the right time. And so it's cool.
Yeah. So you're going to be working in this position, or are you already working in this position full time?
Not yet.
Can you tell us a little bit about what the startup is or no? Is that like?
Yeah, Space Together. It is kind of like corporate version of Airbnb. They might want me to refresh how I pitch that. But, so basically our best friends here, we moved out here to Colorado because they pastor a church. We thought we'd kind of go on staff, do stuff with them. And we watched their process. Wow, they're 28, signing a lease on something that is $4,000 a month with people who are all young that go to this church and don't necessarily always give enough to cover overhead like that. So they started sharing their space with other tenants. We, had some other people rent on Sundays at 9, 11, and 4, and then a youth kind of organization, Young Life, meets there on Mondays. And so everyone is sharing space together and kind of cutting costs and decreasing overhead by, all chipping in for this rent. And, there's obviously someone whose name's on the lease, but by sharing space, most businesses go under in the first 3 years because they can't hack the overhead. So they kind of started thinking, okay, that's just their experience with church. But, if your brick and mortar has 10,000 extra square feet of space, you could rent that out to another local business who needs to also decrease overhead, and everyone's winning. And so it's a platform that acts as the middleman, kind of like Airbnb does for residential homes, but you're getting qualified leads, all of that jazz. And so it's been really cool and met with a lot of warmth and reception. Like, I think we're in 27 states. And so I'm really excited to kind of be up to the plate to bringing visibility to the brand. And it'll be, I think, a fun.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds great. It's so funny because it clearly sounds like a natural extension for everything that's happening, Airbnbs and the co-working spaces. And like everybody is now like wants to share these spaces. And so it seems like a natural fit. And how exciting for you. And so you're doing that as a full-time job, but you're also, like you were saying, you're still doing this mastermind. So tell us a little bit about what that part of the business looks like and what that means.
Oh my gosh. That is where I light up. I have had all of these women invest in me, and women have invested so generously in me when they have had no reason to do so. I'm even writing a book on mentorship that will be out next fall. And this is just an extension of that, as a space where women can kind of have a place to build out their dream business, their dream life, and to have a group of peers running alongside them that will be with them every step of the way. And then my input, sharing everything I know from my journey. And so masterminds are no new concept. It's just my spin on one. And I really love it. I find that I attract a lot of dreamers. I have a lot of dreamers in my audience, but a lot of dreamers aren't doers. And so they need a little help kind of getting it done. And we're going to get it done,
Yeah, absolutely.
And so that brings me so much joy to see people, join the program with their web design business and double their revenue. That was Hannah. Claire joined the mastermind in the fall, has a book on shelves now.
Oh my goodness.
It brings me so much joy to see people, just take their dream to done. It's just my favorite space to interact with women each month.
I love that. And I think that, you say masterminds aren't new, but I think for people that aren't really in the online space, a lot of people don't really know much about masterminds or even, coaching. I mean, they know about it, but maybe it's not the way. I think when you're kind of in the online, especially education space, like you see it all the time. So you think everybody is doing masterminds and stuff, but it isn't. And I do think it's a really important space. Like I've realized the power of it, but obviously it's like even in all these scientific studies, like having accountability, having somebody that you're checking in with will it like exponentially grow your chances of success because, we tend to do more when we know someone else is counting on us or going to check in with us and whatnot. Not only that, I mean, I think the accountability, but the support. I was just reading Atomic Habits by James Clear, and it seems so obvious, but I was thinking about it, like how much we don't realize this. He was saying, if you want to take on a new habit, you have to put yourself around people that do that habit. Put yourself in a community of people that are doing that. So like, obviously, if you want to lose weight, you should hang out people that are into exercise and eating healthy. Like if you're with people that never want to move and want to eat fast food, like you're probably not going to stick to your diet. But I was thinking about it in this sense of business. And I see so many people that are struggling, quitting their jobs to kind of go after their dreams. And I'm like, yeah, because you're surrounded by a bunch of other people that are climbing the corporate ladder. And so to anybody that you say you want to quit, everyone's going to say like, are you crazy? Like security, all this stuff. But if you put yourself around entrepreneurs and people that are going after it, you start really realizing like, it's not a crazy thing to do. It's absolutely like, okay, you think that way and feel that way. And so I can't stress enough like how important finding these types of communities is if you want to make a change in your life.
100%. And it has changed my life to be in communities that I've invested to be in. My two mentors, Amber McHugh and Ann Samoylov in the business space, have changed my life. They have radically invested in me with so much generosity. I think that's why I was attracted to them. Sometimes finding like your person, your mentor is dating, and there are some not so great fits. Sometimes you join a program and you're like, this is not my vibe, or this is not my type of girl or guy. But for me, I think I was just attracted to not like only what they offered, but who they are, like their essence. And they're just really generous with how much they give to their people with healthy boundaries, of course. My life has been changed and my business has thrived because of them.
That's so incredible. Well, this is all just amazing, Kelsey. I love what you're doing. And thank you for sharing your journey with us. Where can people find you, contact you, or maybe follow along on all the exciting new stuff you're getting into?
Yeah. Okay. So you can find me at kelseychapman.com and Kelsey Chapman on Instagram. I would love to kind of keep up with you guys, and definitely shoot me a message if you have any questions.
Wonderful. I will link to those in the show notes in case people can't write it down. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. I really appreciate it, and I loved chatting with you.
Thank you so much for having me. You got to come join me on the radio podcast.
I would love to. Bye, Kelsey. I absolutely loved talking to Kelsey. She is such a sweetheart and full of so much good advice. So here are my 3 takeaways. 1, you don't have to martyr yourself or your life to make a difference. 2, it's okay to walk away from something that is working or making money or has stability if it's making you unhappy. You aren't required to stick with a job or business just because it's successful. It takes a lot of courage, but learn to put yourself first. And 3, you can pivot. You can change directions as many times as you need, but you just have to start with that first step and see where it takes you. I hope you guys like this episode, and I will see you next week. Thank you so much for listening. I can't tell you how much it means to me. If you liked the podcast, please rate and review us on iTunes. It'll help other people find the show. If you want to connect or reach out, follow along on Instagram and Facebook at Lessons from a Quitter, and on Twitter at Quitter Podcast. I would love to hear from you guys, and I'll see you on the next episode.